sun hung high over the sleepy suburb of Willow Creek, Arizona, casting a golden haze on the rows of cookie-cutter homes with their pristine lawns and white picket fences. It was the kind of place where families moved to escape the chaos of city life, dreaming of barbecues, bike rides, and block parties that lasted until the stars came out. Jason Carter had bought his house here 5 years ago, right after retiring from the fire department. At 42, he was still built like the man who'd hauled burning beams off trapped victims' broad shoulders, calloused hands, and a quiet, the intensity that made people step aside without him saying a word. His wife Lucia was the heart of their home, 38, with sharp brown eyes and a laugh that could light up the darkest shift at the hospital where she worked as a nurse. She was the one who turned their 2-bedroom ranch into a sanctuary. That morning started like any other. Jason was in the driveway, wiping down his prized vintage motorcycle. A 1972 Harley he'd restored himself during long nights when the sirens in his head wouldn't quiet. The engine purred under his touch, a reminder of freedom in a world that sometimes felt too boxed in. Lucia was out front, watering the marigolds she'd planted last spring, her scrubs swapped for cut-off jeans and a tank top stained with a bit of soil. Their dog, Max, a lazy golden retriever, lounged on the porch, tail thumping lazily against the wood. But then Lucia spotted a yellow flyer taped to their mailbox, flapping in the breeze like a warning flag. She plucked it off, her brow furrowing, as she read the bold black letters: Neighborhood Watch, violation, unauthorized vehicle storage, fine, $200, due in 48 hours, repeat offense will result in escalation. She crumpled it slightly in her fist, marching over to Jason. "Jason, look at this nonsense," she said, holding it out. Her voice carried that no BS tone she used with stubborn patience. "Unauthorized vehicle. It's a motorcycle in our own driveway. We've had it here for years." Jason straightened up, wiping his hands on a rag, his blue eyes narrowing as he scanned the paper. "Third one this month. Who's got nothing better to do than nitpick a bike?" He shook his head, but there was an edge to his calm flicker of the firefighter who'd stared down infernos without flinching. Probably that busybody Karen Voss from across the street. She's the watch captain, always strutting around like she owns the whole block. Lucia snorted, tossing the flyer toward the trash bin but missing. It fluttered to the grass. "She acts like the queen of Willow Creek. Remember last week when she fined the Ramirez family for their kid's trampoline being 2 inches too close to the property line?" Poor Maria was in tears. Jason nodded, his jaw tightening. He'd seen type before on calls where nosy neighbors turned minor squabbles into full-blown disasters, but he wasn't one to stir trouble. "Let it slide for now. We'll pay it if we have to, not worth the headache." But as Lucia bent to pick up the flyer, a sleek black SUV pulled up slowly at the curb. The tinted windows gleamed, and the engine idled, like a predator sizing up its territory. The door opened, and out stepped Brad Harlan, a burly guy in his 30s with a shaved head, a black polo shirt emblazoned with Neighborhood Watch Enforcement in gold letters, and a fake badge clipped to his belt that looked like it came from a costume shop. He carried a clipboard like a shield, his face set in what he probably thought was official sternness. "Ma'am," Brad barked, striding up the walkway with purpose. "You need to cease that activity immediately. Recording or photographing enforcement notices is against community guidelines." Lucia, who had instinctively pulled out her phone to snap a picture of the flyer for their records, froze. "What? I'm on my own property. This is just a fine notice, and who says I can't take a photo?" Brad's eyes darted to the phone, and he stepped closer, invading her space. "Policy, put it away, or there'll be additional fines." His voice dropped, laced with a threat that didn't match his ill-fitting uniform. Jason set down his rag, standing tall now, his posture shifting from relaxed to ready. "Easy there, buddy, she's not breaking any laws. Back off." But Brad ignored him, focusing on Lucia. His hand shot out not a punch, but a sharp slap across her cheek that echoed like a crack in the quiet morning air. Lucia stumbled back, her phone flying from her hand and skidding across the grass, the screen cracking but the camera still rolling, capturing the whole thing in blurry determination. Her cheek bloomed red, a hand flying to her face in shock. What the hell? The slap hung in the air like smoke from a fresh fire. Jason's world narrowed to that single point of impact. 20 years of pulling people from flames, of making split-second decisions that saved lives, surged through him. He didn't yell, he didn't charge blindly. He moved like the professional he was, controlled, precise. "You just assaulted my wife," he said, his voice low and steady, the kind that made rookies on the force snap to attention. Brad turned, smirking, but there was a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. "Enforcement action." "Step aside, sir." Jason didn't. He closed the distance in 2 strides, his hand clamping on Brad's wrist like a vice. Brad swung wildly with his free fist, but Jason sidestepped, using the momentum to twist. A sickening crack sounded as Brad's wrist gave way. He howled, dropping to one knee, clutching his arm. The clipboard clattered to the ground, papers scattering like confetti from a bad party. Lucia scooped up her phone, wincing as she touched her cheek, but her voice was steel. "It's all on video, you idiot, every second." Neighbors' curtains twitched. Old Mr. Wilkins from next door paused his lawnmower, staring open. Across the street, Karen Voss watched from her porch, her face pale, before she ducked inside. Jason stood over Brad, breathing even. "Stay down. Police are coming." And as the first siren wailed in the distance, Jason realized this wasn't just about a fine anymore. This was personal. A line had been crossed, and in Willow Creek, that meant war. The ambulance lights painted the street in red and blue strobes as paramedics loaded Brad onto a stretcher, his wrist immobilized in a sling, his face twisted in pain and humiliation. Officer Ramirez, a stocky woman in her 40s with a no-nonsense braid and eyes that had seen every kind of suburban drama, took statements on the Carter's porch. Lucia sat on the steps, an ice pack pressed to her cheek, her phone handed over. As evidence, the video played on Ramirez's tablet, clear enough to show Brad's slap and Jason's take. "Assault's cut and dry," Ramirez said, nodding at Lucia. "And that badge, fake as a $3 bill. Neighborhood Watch doesn't have enforcement powers like this. We'll bring in Voss for questioning." Jason leaned against the porch rail, arms crossed, watching the chaos unfold. "Appreciate it. But this feels bigger than one slap-happy goon." Ramirez glanced at him, recognizing the firefighter from old calls. "Yeah. Well, Karen Voss has been complaining about violations non-stop. Fines, threats, sounds like she's running a side hustle. We'll dig." As the ambulance pulled away, Marco Ruiz, the retired mechanic from 2 doors down, shuffled over. He was in his 50s, greased eternally under his nails, with a gut from too many beers and a heart of gold. Heard the commotion. "You two okay?" He eyed Lucia's cheek, whistling low. "That bastard's gonna pay." Lucia managed a weak smile. "Thanks, Marco." Jason handled it. Marco pulled a small USB drive from his pocket, glancing around before handing it to Jason. "Found this in my mailbox yesterday. Meant for someone else, I think. Thought it was junk mail at first, but ... take a look. Might explain why Voss is gunning for folks like you." Jason pocketed it, clapping Marco on the shoulder. "We'll do beers later." "You bet." Marco headed back, but not before muttering, "Watch your backs. Karen's got friends in low places." That night, in the dim glow of their kitchen, Jason plugged the USB into his laptop. Lucia hovered over his shoulder, a fresh bruise shadowing her face but her curiosity burning brighter. Folders bloomed on the screen. Resident profiles, violation, logs, leverage files. Jason clicked the first one, and his stomach twisted. There they were, the Carters. Photo of the motorcycle. Notes on Lucia's hospital shifts 7 p.m. to 3 a.m. Mercy General, vulnerable during commute. Fines tallied $600 total, with threats of lien on the house. Then Marco, late trash pickup, $150. Daughter's DUI record use. For compliance, Mrs. Gomez down the block, $300 porch light violation. Grandson's custody, battle emotional leverage. Lucia's hand gripped the table. "This isn't a watch group, it's a blackmail ring. She's got dirt on everyone." Jason scrolled deeper. Bank transfers from a Willow Creek safety fund to accounts labeled enforcement services. Thousands siphoned, funneled to guys like Brad, and at the bottom, an encrypted file labeled Phase 2, Escalation Protocols. Before he could crack it, his phone buzzed. Unknown number, the message read. "Lucia's night shifts are so predictable. Be ashamed if an accident happened on her way home. Pay the fines, or else." Jason's blood ran cold. He showed Lucia, who paled but then straightened. "We fight back. Tomorrow we expose this." But as the clock ticked past midnight, Jason stared at the screen, wondering just how deep Karen's web went, and what Phase 2 really meant. The kitchen clock ticked past 1 a.m., its steady rhythm a stark contrast to the storm brewing in Jason Carter's chest. The USB drive's glow reflected in his eyes as he and Lucia sat hunched over the laptop, the screen displaying Karen Voss' digital empire of blackmail. The threatening text from earlier still burned in his mind. Asterisk, "Lucia's night shifts are so predictable. Be ashamed if an accident happened." Asterisk, he'd faced fires that could melt steel, but this someone targeting his wife's safety felt like a blaze he couldn't smother. Lucia, her cheeks still tender but her resolve unbreakable, tapped the encrypted file labeled Phase 2, Escalation Protocols. "We need to know what's in there," she said, voice low but fierce. "If Karen's willing to send goons to our house, what's next?" Jason nodded, his fingers hovering over the keyboard. "This is above my pay grade. We need someone who can crack this without leaving a trace." He glanced at Lucia. "Marco might know a guy. Mechanics always have connections." By sunrise, Marco was back, bleary-eyed, but carrying a thermos of coffee and the number of a retired hacker named Riley, a wiry 60-year-old who'd once worked for a defense contractor before retiring to fix Wi-Fi routers for neighbors. Riley showed up at the Carter house by 8 a.m., his beat-up laptop bag slung over his shoulder, his gray ponytail swinging as he muttered about corporate-grade encryption. "Voss is no amateur," Riley said, plugging a USB stick into Jason's laptop. His fingers danced across the keys, pulling up lines of code that looked like gibberish to Jason but made Riley's eyes light up. This file's locked tighter than a bank vault. Give me a couple hours. While Riley worked, Jason and Lucia took Max for a walk, partly to clear their heads, partly to scope the neighborhood. Willow Creek felt different now. The same tidy lawns and pastel houses seemed to hide secrets behind every curtain. Mrs. Gomez was out sweeping her porch, her eyes darting nervously. Mr. Wilkins, usually chatty, avoided their gaze as he trimmed his hedges, and Karen's SUV was parked in her driveway, silent but ominous, like a snake coiled in the grass. "She's watching us," Lucia whispered, gripping Jason's arm. "I can feel it." Jason's jaw clenched. "Let her watch. We've got her number now." Back home, Riley had cracked the file. His face was grim as he turned the laptop toward them. "You're not gonna like this." The screen showed a document titled Phase 2, Targeted Pressure. It outlined a plan to escalate fines into personal threats, using hired muscle like Brad to enforce compliance. Names of residents were listed with vulnerabilities, medical debts, legal troubles, even kids' school schedules. At the bottom, a chilling note, asterisk, non-compliant residents, for example, Carter Gomez, require immediate action. Hospital routes and shift changes are optimal leverage points. Asterisk. Lucia's hand flew to her mouth. "She's targeting my commute, my patients. This is insane." Jason's fists balled. "She's not just a bully. She's a predator." Riley leaned back, scratching his ponytail. "There's more. This file mentions a Phase 3, community control. It's not here. But it sounds like she's planning something bigger, maybe hitting public spaces, schools or local businesses, to scare everyone into line." The room went quiet, save for Max's soft snoring in the corner. Jason stood, pacing. "We need to take this to the community. Show them what she's doing before she escalates." Lucia nodded, but her eyes were steel. "And we need to protect ourselves. If she's watching my shifts, we change my routine." No patterns. That afternoon, Jason called an emergency meeting at the Willow Creek Community Center. Word spread fast, and by 6 p.m., the room was packed, neighbors shoulder to shoulder, kids fidgeting in the back, even old Mr. Wilkins clutching his gardening gloves like a lifeline. The air buzzed with unease, whispers of fines and threats already circulating. Jason took the podium, his firefighters calm, steadying the crowd. "Folks, this isn't about my motorcycle or Mrs. Gomez's porch light. Karen Voss is running a racket, blackmailing us with our own lives." He plugged Riley's laptop into the projector, and the Phase 2 document flashed on the screen. Gasps rippled as neighbors saw their names, their secrets, their fears laid bare. Mrs. Gomez stood, her voice shaking but loud. "She fined me $300 for my porch light, then sent me a letter about my grandson's custody case. Said she'd help if I paid up. That's no watch group, that's a mob." The crowd erupted, shouts of "she got me for my dog," and $400 for my fence paint. Echoing. Karen Voss slipped in late, her designer blazer crisp, her smile tight. She raised a hand, trying to take control. "This is a misunderstanding. The neighborhood watch ensures safety, property values." Jason cut her off, his voice like a blade. "Safety? You sent a thug to slap my wife. You're tracking our lives like we're criminals." He played Lucia's phone video, the slap ringing through the speakers. The room went silent, then exploded again. Mothers clutched their kids. Mr. Wilkins threw his gloves on the floor, cursing. Karen's composure cracked. "You're twisting this. The Carters are troublemakers, ignoring rules, threatening order." "Then explain this." Lucia stepped forward, holding up printed screenshots from the USB. "You've got my hospital shifts, Marco's daughters, DUI, Mrs. Gomez's family drama. You're not protecting us, you're extorting us." The crowd turned on Karen, demands for answers drowning her protests. Mrs. Patterson, the quiet secretary of the watch group, banged a gavel. "By our bylaws, I call for a vote to remove Karen Voss as watch leader. All in favor." Hands shot up, nearly every one. Karen's face went white, then red. "You idiots," she hissed, leaning into the microphone. "You think this ends with me? My network's bigger than this pathetic little street. You'll see." She stormed out, the door slamming behind her. The room buzzed with shock, but also resolve. Mrs. Patterson took the podium. "We need an interim leader. I nominate Jason Carter." More hands, unanimous. Jason nodded, but his eyes were on the door where Karen had vanished. He knew a cornered animal when he saw one, and Karen wasn't done fighting that night. As neighbors lingered in the parking lot, trading plans to watch each other's backs, Jason's phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. The message read, asterisk, "You think you've won. Phase 3 starts tomorrow. Check your kids' school gates, asterisk Lucia." Read it over his shoulder, her breath catching. "Jason, she's going after the school. The kids." He pulled her close, his voice steady but his heart racing. "We're not waiting for her next move. We end this now." But as they drove home under the Arizona stars, Jason couldn't shake the feeling that Karen's network was watching, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The Arizona dawn broke over Willow Creek with a deceptive calm, painting the cul-de-sac in soft pinks and golds. But Jason Carter felt no peace as he stood on his porch, coffee cooling in his hand, eyes scanning the street for anything out of place. The text from last night burned in his memory. Asterisk, you think you've won. Phase 3 starts tomorrow. Check your kids' school gates. Asterisk, he and Lucia didn't have kids. But the threat hit hard. Sunset Elementary was where Lucia volunteered, reading to first graders on her days off. It was her sanctuary, and now Karen Voss had aimed her venom at it. Lucia emerged from the house, her nurse's scrubs swapped for jeans and a determined frown. The bruise on her cheek was fading, but her eyes carried a fire that hadn't dimmed. I called the school, she said, slipping her phone into her pocket. They're locking down dismissal early. Extra staff at the gates, but parents are panicking. Rumors are spreading faster than we can keep up. Jason nodded, his jaw tight. Good, we're not taking chances. I'm meeting Ramirez at the station this morning to hand over the USB. Riley's digging deeper into Karen's files for anything on this phase 3. As they spoke, Marco rolled up in his beat-up pickup, his face grim. Got a problem, amigos? He held up a crumpled note he'd found taped to his garage, scrolled in Sharpie. Asterisk, back off, Ruiz, or your daughter's DUI goes public. You know what that'll do to her job. Asterisk, found it at 5 a.m. Karen's not slowing down. Lucia's hand tightened on Jason's arm. She's hitting everyone who spoke out last night. This is retaliation. Jason's mind raced. He'd faced collapsing buildings, but this was different. Karen was weaving a net of fear, and every neighbor was a potential target. Marco, get that note to Ramirez. We're building a case, piece by piece. By 10 a.m., Jason was at the Willow Creek police station, a squat brick building that smelled of stale coffee and printer ink. Officer Ramirez met him in a cluttered office, her desk buried under reports. She took the USB and Marco's note, her braids swinging as she leaned forward. This is bigger than I thought, she admitted, plugging the drive into her computer. Those bank transfers you found, they traced to a shell company called Secure Neighborhood Solutions. No license, no oversights, just a front for hired muscle like Brad. Jason leaned against the wall, arms crossed. And the school threat. That's federal territory, right? Ramirez nodded, her eyes sharp. Already flagged it for the FBI, threatening kids' pulls and heavy hitters. But we need more than texts and files to nail Voss. We need her caught in the act. As Jason left the station, his phone buzzed. Another unknown number. Asterisk, Sunset Elementary. 3 p.m. dismissal. You can't watch every kid. Asterisk, his stomach dropped. He forwarded it to Ramirez and called Lucia. Stay away from the school today. I'm heading there now. The school was a fortress by noon. Parents crowded the gates, picking up kids early. Teachers scanned IDs with military precision. Jason parked across the street, watching for anything suspicious. Strange car, a loiterer, anything. That's when he saw it. A black van, no plates, idling 2 blocks down. A man in a hoodie stepped out, adjusting what looked like a camera lens aimed at the school entrance. Jason's training kicked in. He didn't approach, he snapped a photo with his phone and sent it to Ramirez. Asterisk, possible surveillance at school. Black van, no plates. Asterisk, minutes later, Ramirez's cruiser pulled up, silent but swift. The van peeled out before she could close in, but she radioed the plates to dispatch. We're on it, she told Jason, her voice clipped. But this is escalating fast. Voss isn't working alone. Back home, Riley had set up shop in the Carter's dining room, his laptop surrounded by empty coffee mugs. Got something, he said, not looking up. That phase 3 file wasn't on the USB, but I traced an email from Voss's account to a burner address. It mentions maximum disruption at a public site, school or community center, where she's planning to scare the whole town into submission. Lucia, pacing with her phone, stopped dead. The community center. We're having another meeting tonight. Parents, teachers, everyone. If she's targeting public spaces, that's her next hit. Jason's mind flashed to the crowd from last night. The anger, the unity. Karen had lost her title, but not her grip. We lock it down, he said. Extra eyes, no surprises. And we bait her into showing her hand. The community center was a madhouse by 7 p.m. Folding chairs overflowed with neighbors' parents clutching kids, retirees muttering about property values. Even Mr. Wilkins gripping his gardening gloves like a weapon. Mrs. Gomez stood at the back, her eyes red but defiant, holding a new fine notice, $500 for unauthorized yard decorations. She's still coming for us, she shouted, waving the paper. My grandson's birthday balloons. This is personal. Jason took the microphone, his voice cutting through the chaos. Karen Voss isn't just finding Uskis threatening our families, our kids. We've got proof. Her files, her hired goons, her texts about the school. Tonight, we stand together. No one's alone. He nodded to Riley, who projected the USB's files onto the screen. Names, secrets, bank transfers. The crowd gasped as their lives flashed up, vulnerable and exposed. Then Lucia played her assault video again, the slap echoing like a gunshot. A mother in the front row covered her mouth. A father swore under his breath. Mrs. Patterson, the new watch secretary, banged her gavel. We've removed Voss, but she's not stopping. We need a plan, security, coordination, and no one walks. Home alone? That's when the lights flickered. A low hum filled the room, then a crash outside. The crowd froze. Jason moved first, signaling Marco to guard the door. He stepped outside, Lucia close behind, her phone recording. In the parking lot, a brick lay shattered near a busted street lamp, glass glittering under the moonlight. Scrawled on the brick in red paint, Phase 3, you're not safe. Jason's blood ran hot. He scanned the lot. No van, no Karen, just shadows. But the message was clear. She was watching, and she was close. He turned to Lucia, his voice low. She's trying to scare us. We don't blink. Inside, the meeting turned into a war council. Parents formed carpool groups. Retirees volunteered for night watches. Riley offered to set up a private server for neighbors to share suspicious activity securely. But as the crowd dispersed, Jason's phone buzzed again. Asterisk, you can't guard every gate. Sunset Elementary. Tomorrow, 3 p.m. Phase 3 is live. Asterisk, Lucia grabbed his hand, her voice shaking but resolute. She's not getting near those kids. We'll be ready. Jason nodded, but as they drove home, the black van's image haunted him. Karen wasn't just a bully, she was a strategist, and her next move was coming faster than they could prepare. The Willow Creek sky burned orange as the sun sank, casting long shadows across the cul-de-sac that felt like fingers reaching for Jason Carter's throat. He stood in his driveway, eyes locked on the street where the black van had vanished earlier. That day, the latest text from the unknown number gnawed at him. Asterisk, you can't guard every gate. Sunset Elementary. Tomorrow, 3 p.m. Phase 3 is live. Asterisk, it wasn't just a threat, it was a countdown, and every tick of the clock tightened the knot in his gut. Lucia was inside, coordinating with parents from Sunset Elementary, her voice steady over the phone despite the fear Jason knew she was fighting. She'd always been tougher than him in the ways that mattered, but this was different. This was their community, their home, and now their kid's safety on the line. Marco knocked on the doorframe, his grease-stained hands clutching a new piece of evidence, a blurry photo printed from his doorbell camera. It showed a figure in a hoodie slipping the threatening note onto his garage at dawn. Couldn't make out the face, Marco said, his voice rough. But that's Karen's SUV, in the background, same license plate. Jason took the photo, his jaw tightening. She's getting sloppy or desperate. He handed it to Lucia, who was off the phone now, her eyes scanning the image like a nurse assessing a wound. We add this to the pile. For Ramirez. Every piece tightens the noose. Riley, still camped out at their dining table with his laptop, looked up from his screen. His ponytail was frazzled, his coffee mug empty for the third time. I got into that burner email from Karen's account, he said, voice low. It's bad. Jason, Phase 3 isn't just threats, it's coordinated. Emails to a guy named T. Malone about disrupting public order at the school. Mentions visual intimidation and crowd panic at 3 p.m. dismissal. She's planning something big to scare everyone into submission. Lucia's face paled, but her voice stayed firm. Visual intimidation. What? Like more goons or something worse? Riley shrugged, his fingers still typing. Could be anything fake. Cops, staged accidents, even a bomb scare to shut down the school. She wants chaos, not just control. Jason's mind flashed to his firefighting days, evacuations gone wrong, panic spreading faster than flames. We don't wait for her to make the first move, he said. We lock down the school, the community center, everywhere she might hit, and we bait her into showing herself. By 9 a.m., Jason was at Sunset Elementary, meeting with Principal Torres, a nonsense woman in her 50s who'd seen her share of crises. The school was already a fortress, gates locked, teachers stationed at every entrance, parents signing in and out like it was a military checkpoint. Jason briefed Torres on the threat, showing her the texts and Riley's email findings. Her eyes narrowed. I've got 300 kids here, Mr. Carter. If Voss is targeting my school, she's picking a fight she won't win. Jason nodded, respecting her steel. We've got neighbors volunteering for patrols. I'll be here at dismissal with Ramirez. If Karen or her people show, we'll catch them. Torres crossed her arms. Good, but if I see one fake badge, I'm calling in SWAT. Nobody messes with my kids. Back home, Lucia was organizing a neighborhood watch of their own, not Karen's corrupt version, but a real one. Mrs. Gomez, Marco, and even old Mr. Wilkins signed up, armed with phones and walkie-talkies Riley had rigged for secure communication. The plan was simple. Blanket the school and community center with eyes, document everything, and signal if anything looked off. Lucia's hospital had agreed to shift her schedule 2 days only, cutting off Karen's leverage on her commute. But Jason knew Karen wouldn't stop. She'd just find another target. At 2:30 p.m. Jason was parked across from Sunset Elementary, his truck blending with the minivans lining the street. Ramirez was nearby in an unmarked cruiser, her radio crackling with updates from patrol units. The school's dismissal bell rang, and kids streamed out, backpacks bouncing, parents rushing to scoop them up. Jason's eyes scanned the crowd, mothers chatting, teachers waving, a janitor sweeping the sidewalk. Then he saw it. The black van, same as yesterday, parked a block away. The man in the hoodie was back, this time with a second figure, both fiddling with what looked like a tripod and camera. Jason radioed Ramirez. "Van's here, 2 guys, setting up something looks like filming equipment." Ramirez's voice crackled back. "Stay put, I'm moving in." Before she could, a loud bang echoed from the school's front gate. Parents screamed, kids scattered, and teachers scrambled to herd everyone inside. Jason's heart leapt. It wasn't a gunshot, but a firecracker, tossed into a trash can near the entrance. Thick smoke billowed, sparking panic. The hoodie guy was filming, his camera trained on the chaos like a director capturing a scene. Jason bolted from his truck, weaving through the crowd. "Stay calm," he shouted, his firefighter instincts kicking in. "It's just a firecracker, get the kids inside." He spotted the second figure slipping back to the van, a backpack slung over one shoulder. Jason sprinted after him, tackling the guy to the ground just as he reached the van's door. The backpack spilled open more firecrackers, a smoke bomb, and a stack of flyers reading, "Obey the watch or pay the price." Ramirez's cruiser screeched up, her gun drawn. "Hands up now." The hoodie guy dropped his camera, raising his hands, his face pale. The second man, pinned under Jason, groaned. "It was just a job, man. Voss paid us." The crowd calmed as teachers regained control, but the damage was done. Parents were shaken, kids crying. Lucia arrived, her phone out, recording the scene. "Got it all," she said, her voice steady despite the chaos. "Karen's goons, the flyers, everything." Ramirez cuffed the 2 men, reading them their rights as backup arrived. She turned to Jason, her face grim. This was her visual intimidation. Scare the parents, make them think she's untouchable. But these idiots just gave us a direct line to her. That night, the community center was packed again, the air electric with anger. Jason stood at the podium, holding up one of the flyers from the school. "This is Karen Voss's Phase 3, he said, his voice booming. "She's not protecting us, she's terrorizing us. But we caught her people red-handed today. The police have them, and they're talking." Mrs. Gomez stood, her voice shaking with fury. "She scared my grandson half to death. We're done with her games." The crowd roared agreement, fists pounding chairs. Mrs. Patterson called for a formal complaint to the county, demanding Karen's arrest for orchestrating the school incident. But as the meeting ended, Jason's phone buzzed. Another text, unknown number. Asterisk, "Nice try at the school. Phase 3 isn't one event, it's a movement. Check your backyard tonight." Asterisk, he showed Lucia, whose face hardened. "She's not stopping, Jason. She's doubling down." They raced home, flashlights sweeping their yard, their spray painted on their fence in red. "You can't stop us," Max growled, hackles up, as a shadow darted across the street. Fast to chase. Jason's blood boiled, but he kept his cool. "She wants us scared," he told Lucia. "We're not giving her that." As they called Ramirez with the new evidence, Jason knew the fight was far from over. Karen's network was real, and Phase 3 was just beginning. The Willow Creek night was heavy with the scent of desert dust and tension, the kind that clung to the skin like smoke after a fire. Jason Carter stood in his backyard, flashlight beam cutting through the darkness, illuminating the red spray paint. Scroll on his fence, "You can't stop us." The words glared back, a taunt from Karen Voss that felt like a fist to the gut. Lucia stood beside him, her phone capturing the vandalism in crisp, unforgiving detail. Max, their golden retriever, growled low, his ears pinned as if he sensed the invisible eyes watching from the shadows. The text from earlier that night, asterisk, "Check your backyard tonight," asterisk, had been no bluff. Karen's Phase 3 was in motion, and it was personal. "Ramirez is on her way," Lucia said, her voice steady but tight, like a nurse prepping for a trauma case. "This, plus the school stunt, is enough to bury her." Jason nodded, his firefighters calm, masking the rage simmering beneath. "She's not just targeting us anymore. She's trying to break the whole neighborhood." He scanned the street, catching a flicker of movement near Karen's house curtains, twitching, then still. "She's watching," Lucia, always watching. By the time Officer Ramirez's cruiser rolled up, the cul-de-sac was awake. Neighbors' porch lights flicked on, faces pressed to windows. Mrs. Gomez clutched her robe, staring at the graffiti from her driveway. Marco leaned on his mailbox, his wrench in hand like a makeshift weapon. Ramirez took one look at the fence, then at Jason's grim expression. "Voss is escalating," she said, snapping photos with her phone. "The 2 guys from the school are singing like canaries. They say she hired them through a middleman, Team Malone. We're tracing him now." Jason handed her Lucia's phone, the vandalism video queued up. "Add this to the pile, and we've got more." He pulled a folded printout from his pocket. Riley's latest find, an email from Karen to Malone. Asterisk, "School was a start. Hit Carter's house next. Make it loud. Phase 3 needs fear to stick." Asterisk, Ramirez's eyes narrowed. "This is conspiracy. Now FBI's already looping in. If we catch Malone, we've got her." Inside, Riley was still at the dining table, his laptop glowing like a war room command center. His fingers flew across the keys, pulling up a new lead. "Found Malone," he said, voice hoarse from too much coffee. ex-security contractor, runs a shady outfit out of Phoenix. Karen's been wiring him thousands from the watch fund. And get this, his crew's been scoping the community center for tomorrow night's town hall. They're planning something big. Lucia's hand tightened on Jason's arm. The town hall. That's where we're finalizing the new watch rules. Half the neighborhood will be their kids' families. Jason's mind raced, picturing the packed community center, a perfect stage for Karen's chaos. We don't wait for her to strike, he said. We set a trap. The next morning, Jason and Lucia met with Mrs. Patterson and a dozen neighbors at the community center, turning it into a fortress. Marco rigged extra locks on the doors. Mrs. Gomez organized a phone tree to alert every family. Riley set up hidden cameras, streaming to a secure server. Ramirez coordinated with her precinct, pulling in plainclothes officers to blend with the crowd. The plan was simple. Let Karen's crew show up, catch them in the act, and tie them to her with hard evidence. By 7 p.m., the center was packed again, the air thick with anticipation. Neighbors filled every chair, their faces a mix of fear and defiance. Kids colored in the corner, unaware of the stakes. Jason stood at the podium, his voice steady. We're here to take back our neighborhood. Karen Voss thinks she can scare us into silence. Tonight, we prove her wrong. Mrs. Patterson outlined new watch rules: no fines, no enforcers, just neighbors looking out for each other. The crowd cheered, but the tension didn't break. Everyone knew Karen was out there plotting. Then, a low rumble outside cut through the noise. Heads turned. Jason signaled Riley, who checked his camera feeds on a tablet. 3 guys, black van, back entrance, he whispered. They're carrying bags, looks heavy. Jason nodded to Ramirez, who was in the crowd, her hand on her radio. Go time, he mouthed. He stepped outside with Marco, moving silently to flank the van. The 3 men wore black polos, Secure Neighborhood Solutions stitched on. The chests. One carried a duffel bag, unzipping it to reveal smoke bombs and more flyers. Submit or suffer. Before they could act, Jason lunged, tackling the nearest guy. Marco swung his wrench, knocking a smoke bomb from another's hand. The third tried to run but tripped over Ramirez's foot as she emerged from the shadows, cuffs ready. You're done, she said, her voice ice-cold. The crowd inside erupted. As plainclothes officers swarmed, securing the men in seconds, Riley's cameras caught it all: every move, every flyer, every face. The leader, a grizzled man with a scar on his cheek, spat as he was cuffed. Voss said, you'd fold. You're nothing. Jason leaned close, his voice low. Tell Voss she's out of moves. The town hall turned into a victory rally. Neighbors hugged, kids clapped, and Mrs. Gomez led a chant of no more fear. Ramirez took the podium, holding up the duffel bag. These men work for Team Alone, hired by Karen Voss. We've got bank records, emails, and now video. She's done. But as the crowd dispersed, Jason's phone buzzed. Unknown number. Asterisk, you think this stops me? Phase 3 is bigger than Malone. Watch your backs. Asterisk, he showed Lucia, whose face hardened. She's not giving up. Jason. The next day, police raided Karen's house. She was gone, fled, leaving behind a laptop with more emails linking her to Malone's crew. The FBI took over, tracing her to a motel outside Phoenix. By nightfall, she was in custody, charged with extortion, conspiracy, and terroristic threats. Her network crumbled as Malone and his men cut deals to save themselves. Willow Creek exhaled. Block parties returned, kids played without fear, and the community center became a place for potlucks, not war councils. Jason and Lucia stood on their porch, Max dozing at their feet. The fence was repainted, the graffiti gone. Think it's really over? Lucia asked, leaning into him. Jason kissed her forehead, his eyes on the horizon. For now, but we're ready if it's not. Weeks later, a new family moved into Karen's old house. They kept to themselves, their windows dark, a security camera blinking red on their porch. Jason watched from his driveway, his wrench in hand. Peace was fragile, and in Willow Creek, vigilance was the price of freedom.